Welcome to my channel, my friends. Have you ever wanted to speak English, but felt your mouth couldn't move, your mind froze, and your heart beat faster than your words? Don't worry, I know that feeling. I was there too. In this video, I'll show you how to go from silence to confidence, one simple step at a time. Every chapter is a piece of the secret that helped me finally speak. Comment below. Do you ever feel nervous when you try to speak English? I want to know your answer. Chapter 1. I wanted to speak, but words didn't come. I still remember the first time I tried to speak English. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My heart was loud, but my voice was silent. I wanted to speak so badly, but the words got stuck somewhere between my mind and my lips. It was like there was a wall inside me, made of fear, doubt, and confusion. Everyone around me seemed so confident. They spoke fast, laughed, and moved on, while I stood there quietly, pretending to understand. Inside, I felt small. I kept asking myself, why can't I speak? What's wrong with me? Every English learner knows that feeling. You understand a few words in your mind, but when it's your turn to talk, everything disappears. Your brain freezes. You start thinking, what if I say it wrong? What if they laugh? What if they don't understand me? And that fear becomes stronger than your desire to speak. I know because I lived that fear every single day. I wanted to speak, but I was scared of the sound of my own voice. I thought my English was broken. I thought I wasn't smart enough. But deep down, I still had hope. A small voice saying, maybe I can do it. At school, English was always the hardest subject for me. When the teacher asked a question, I looked down. I didn't want her to call my name. I knew the answer in my language, but not in English. My classmates spoke easily. They seemed so natural, like they were born with English in their blood. I wondered how they did it. I tried to copy them, but my tongue didn't listen. My pronunciation was strange. My words sounded heavy. The more I tried, the more nervous I became. So I stopped trying. I stayed quiet, thinking silence was safer than mistakes. But silence never helps you learn. At home, I watched English TV shows. I heard people talk so easily. Hi, how are you? What's going on? See you later. The sentences were short, but full of life. I wanted to speak like that. I repeated the words softly to myself, but they didn't sound the same. I thought maybe I was not made for English. Maybe I should just accept that it's too hard for me. But every time I thought that, something inside me said no. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to live afraid of a language. I wanted to speak freely, to express myself, to connect with people. I wanted to feel proud when I spoke English. One day, something small but powerful happened. I was in a shop, and the shopkeeper said, "Hello." My heart started beating fast. For a moment, I thought about running away. But then I remembered the word. I knew what it meant. I took a deep breath and said, "Hello." Just one word. But that one word made me feel alive. It was my first real English moment. For the first time, I didn't think about grammar, mistakes, or rules. I just spoke. That one word gave me confidence. I smiled all the way home, thinking, if I can say hello today, maybe I can say more tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how one small word changed everything. It made me realize that speaking English is not about being perfect. It's about being brave for a few seconds. It's about trying even when you're scared. I understood that my problem was not English. It was fear. I was waiting to feel ready, but I learned that no one ever feels ready. You just have to start. You just have to open your mouth, even if your voice shakes. After that, I made a promise to myself. I said, from today, I will speak at least one English sentence every day. It didn't matter how simple or how short it was. It could be, I am happy, or I like tea. The goal was not to speak perfectly, but to speak at all. I realized that speaking is like walking. You fall, you get up, and you try again. Each step makes you stronger. Each mistake teaches you something new. And the more you try, the more natural it becomes. In the beginning, my sentences were small. My grammar was wrong. My pronunciation was strange. But I didn't care anymore. I spoke anyway. I practiced with myself, with my friends, even with objects around me. I started saying things like, "This is my book. I am drinking water. I am learning English." The more I spoke, the more comfortable I became. Slowly, the fear started to fade. Speaking English stopped feeling like a mountain. It started to feel like a path. A long one, but a path I could walk on. If you are watching this, and you feel like I did, I want you to know, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not bad at English. You are just afraid, and that's okay. Fear is normal, but silence will not help you. The only way to learn to speak English is by speaking English. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Even if it's just one sentence, say it. Speak out loud. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because that moment is now. You don't have to be fluent to start speaking. You become fluent by speaking. You don't have to speak like a native speaker. You just have to speak like yourself. Every learner starts from zero. Every fluent person you see today once said their first word too. So don't compare yourself. Don't be afraid. Be proud of your first steps. Be proud that you're trying. Because every time you try, you are building your English voice, and one day, that voice will surprise you. So today, say something, anything, in English. Say it with confidence, even if it's small. Because that small voice will grow. That first step will lead to many more. And soon, you'll look back and smile, just like I did. The words will come. Trust me, they always do. Chapter 2. The day I realized I could speak. There comes a small moment in every learner's life that changes everything. For me, it was not a big event. No stage, no applause, no teacher giving me a gold star. It was just a quiet morning when I finally realized that I could speak in English, not perfectly, not fluently, but truly speak. That realization felt like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. It didn't happen because I studied hard grammar or memorized long lists of words. It happened because I finally used what I already knew, even if it was just a few simple words. I was sitting in the park that morning, reading the signs around me. Keep the park clean. Do not litter. Thank you. These were sentences I had seen before. But that day, they sounded different. My brain wasn't translating them anymore. I could understand them directly, in English. It felt natural, almost too simple, yet magical. For the first time, English wasn't a foreign code. It was alive around me. I smiled quietly. Something inside me said, "You can understand now. You can speak too." That afternoon, a tourist stopped near me and asked for directions. Normally, I would panic and stay quiet. But that day, I decided to try. My heart was loud, my hands were shaking, but I said, "Go straight and turn left." The tourist smiled and said, "Thank you." That thank you was more powerful than 1,000 lessons. It was proof that I could do it. My English wasn't perfect, but it worked. I had communicated. I had spoken. For the first time in my life, I felt proud of my English, no matter how small it was. When I went home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That small conversation replayed in my mind again and again. Go straight and turn left. Just a few words, but they opened a new world for me. I realized that speaking English is not about big vocabulary or fancy grammar. It's about courage. It's about using what you already know. I had been waiting for years to feel ready. But that day taught me something powerful. You never feel ready until you start speaking. Readiness comes from doing. I began to look back at all those days I had stayed silent. I remembered how I used to think English was too big for me, like a mountain I could never climb. But that one small conversation showed me the truth. You don't climb a mountain in one step, but you start by taking one. And that first step changes everything. I stopped thinking about being fluent. I started thinking about being brave. I realized that the only difference between people who speak and people who don't is that one group tries, and the other waits. So, I started to try. Every day, I tried to speak one sentence. Sometimes to a friend, sometimes to a stranger, sometimes just to myself. I stopped judging my English. I stopped saying I can't. Instead, I started saying, I'm learning. That simple change in attitude made my mind stronger. The more I spoke, the more confident I felt. Even when I made mistakes, I didn't stop. Because every time I used English, I discovered something new. A new word, a new sound, a new piece of myself. I also began to notice something strange but wonderful. When I spoke English, I felt like a different version of me. More curious, more confident, more open. It was like English wasn't just a language. It was a new door to express who I was. I could tell jokes, ask questions, and share ideas that I never could before. That realization filled me with excitement. I was no longer afraid of English. I was in love with it. And when you love something, you grow with it naturally. Of course, there were still difficult moments. Some days, I spoke, and people didn't understand me. Some days, I forgot words in the middle of a sentence. Some days, I felt like giving up. But each time that happened, I remembered the tourist's smile. That simple thank you. It reminded me that even imperfect English can make someone understand you. That's what communication really means. Not perfect sentences, but connection. And once I understood that, my fear slowly disappeared. Speaking English became fun. I started to experiment. I would talk to myself in the mirror, act out little scenes, imagine conversations. I turned mistakes into practice, and silence into sentences. Every small effort gave me confidence. Every conversation became a victory. I realized that learning English is not about knowing everything. It's about using what you already know, again and again, until it becomes a part of you. That day in the park taught me more than any book or class ever did. It taught me that the real key to speaking English is not knowledge. It's courage. You already know enough to start. You don't need to wait for perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, or perfect timing. You just need one small decision to speak anyway. That decision will change your English, your confidence, and your life. So today, I want you to do what I did. Say something. Anything. Even if it's just "How are you?" or "I like English." Say it out loud. Don't think too much. Don't wait for the perfect sentence. Speak now, and let your English grow naturally from that one brave moment. Because one day, you'll look back at today and say, that was the day I realized I could speak. Chapter 3. Thinking in English before speaking. When I first started learning English, I always thought speaking was just about words coming out of your mouth. But later, I discovered something powerful. Speaking actually starts in your mind. The real reason I couldn't speak was not because I didn't know words. It was because I was thinking in my own language first. Every time I wanted to say something, I would think it in my native language, then try to translate it into English. But by the time I found the right words, the moment was gone. I stayed silent again. That's when I realized, if I wanted to speak fluently, I had to start thinking in English. At first, that idea sounded impossible. How could I think in a language I barely knew? But slowly, I learned that it's not about thinking in big sentences. It's about thinking in small English thoughts. I started simple. When I woke up, I didn't say in my mind, I am going to get up now in my language. I said it in English. I wake up. When I brushed my teeth, I said, I am brushing my teeth. When I ate breakfast, I said, I eat. These small thoughts began to change everything. English was no longer just something in my notebook. It became something living inside my mind. In the beginning, it felt strange. My brain wanted to go back to my old language. I had to stop myself every few seconds and try again. But I kept doing it. Little by little, I started to catch myself thinking in English naturally. The words were simple, but they were mine. I began to see the world in English, not because I was forcing it, but because I was practicing it in my thoughts every day. The more I thought in English, the easier it became to speak. My mind and mouth started to connect like good friends. One morning, I realized something amazing. I was walking to school, and a song played in my head. In English. I wasn't translating it, I was just enjoying it. That was the first time I truly felt like English was becoming a part of me. It was no longer a subject, it was my second voice. I began to use that voice all the time, when I looked at people, when I touched things, when I felt emotions. I started saying, I am happy, I feel tired, the weather is nice. These small thoughts built a bridge in my brain between silence and speech. Thinking in English also helped me stop being afraid. Before, when someone spoke to me, I needed time to translate their words. By the time I understood, the conversation had already moved on. But when I started thinking in English, I could understand faster. My replies came naturally. I didn't have to pause and build a sentence. It just came out. That was the day I realized fluency is not magic, it's the result of training your thoughts. To make it fun, I played games with myself. When I saw an object, I tried to name it in English. Table, chair cup pen. When I saw an action, I described it. The dog runs. The man smiles. The child plays. When I couldn't remember a word, I didn't stop. I explained it another way. The thing we use to write instead of pen. This trick helped me stay in English instead of jumping back to my language. Every time I did that, my confidence grew. At night, I practiced thinking about my day, but only in English. I would close my eyes and say to myself, I woke up at 7. I ate breakfast. I went to school. I met my friend. These were not just sentences, they were my thoughts becoming English thoughts. Over time, my brain began to think faster in English than it did in my own language. That's when speaking became natural. I wasn't preparing to speak anymore. I was just expressing what was already in my mind. The truth is, you can't speak fluently if your thoughts are not in English. Speaking begins long before you open your mouth. It begins in the silence of your mind. If you fill your thoughts with English, your feelings, your plans, your small daily moments, speaking will come automatically. You won't need to push yourself to speak. It will happen naturally, because your brain is already doing it silently all day. When I realized this, I stopped memorizing random words. I started living with them. If I learned the word hungry, I didn't just write it down. I used it in my thoughts. I am hungry. If I learned beautiful, I looked around and said, the sky is beautiful. That's how English started to live inside me. I didn't study it anymore. I lived it. You don't need to know thousands of words to think in English. You just need the courage to start with a few. Begin with what you know, and grow from there. Say simple things in your mind. It's hot. I am tired. I like this. These small sentences will train your brain to think in English naturally. And once your thoughts are in English, speaking will become your second nature. So today, start small. Wherever you are, look around and think in English. Describe what you see. Tell yourself what you're doing. Talk to your mind like it's your English friend. You'll be surprised how quickly you start to speak without fear, without hesitation, and without translation. Because when your thoughts change, your voice follows. And that's how I learned to speak, not by memorizing rules, but by teaching my mind a new language of life. Chapter 4. I talked to myself every day. When I first started learning English, I didn't have anyone to practice with. No friends, no teacher, no language partner. I felt stuck. I wanted to speak, but who could I talk to? Then one day, I realized something so simple yet so powerful. I could talk to myself. It sounded strange at first. I thought, won't people think I'm crazy? But I was desperate to improve. So I tried. And that one small decision, to talk to myself every day, changed everything about how I learned English. The first time I did it, I stood in front of the mirror. My heart was beating fast, like I was about to meet someone important. And in a way I was. I was meeting myself. I looked into my own eyes and said, "Hello." It felt awkward. My voice sounded shy. But then I said, "How are you?" and answered, "I'm fine, thank you." I smiled. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being wrong, because no one was judging me. I could speak freely, make mistakes, and still keep going. That mirror became my first teacher, and my reflection became my first English friend. At first, my sentences were simple. I am brushing my hair. I am wearing a blue shirt. I will go to the kitchen. But slowly, something started to happen. The more I talked to myself, the more confident I felt. I noticed my pronunciation improving. My tongue became flexible. My sentences started to connect naturally. I didn't need to think too much. Words came faster. I was training my mouth, my mind, and my confidence at the same time. Talking to myself became my secret classroom, open 24 hours a day. I remember one day, I was cooking. I decided to describe everything I was doing in English. I am cutting onions. My eyes are burning. I am putting oil in the pan. It made the task fun. It was like I was the narrator of my own English movie. I didn't realize it then, but I was training my brain to think and speak at the same time. I wasn't studying. I was living the language. That's when English started becoming natural, not something I had to push myself to do. Talking to myself also helped me overcome fear. Before, I used to freeze when people spoke to me. I was afraid of making mistakes. But after practicing alone every day, I felt stronger. I had already spoken those words many times to myself. So when someone asked me in real life, "How was your day?" I could answer easily. It wasn't scary anymore, because my mind had practiced it 100 times in private. Self-talk gave me the power to be ready for real situations. Sometimes, I would talk to myself about my feelings. If I was sad, I'd say, "I feel sad today, but it's okay." If I was happy, I'd say, "I'm so happy right now. Hello." These small emotional sentences helped me learn real human English, the kind people actually use in daily life. And the more I expressed myself, the more comfortable I became in my own skin. I wasn't just learning a language, I was building a connection with myself. I know some people think that talking to yourself is strange. But let me tell you the truth. It's one of the smartest things you can do as a learner. Babies do it when they learn to speak. They talk to themselves all the time. That's how they learn their first language. So why not you? When you talk to yourself, you remove fear, you remove judgment. You can practice anywhere, anytime, no pressure, no fear. Only progress. It's the most honest, effective, and powerful speaking practice in the world. Every day, I made time for my English talk. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 20. I didn't always stand in front of the mirror. Sometimes, I walked around the room and talked about what I saw. The window is open. The sky looks gray. I can hear the birds. Other times, I imagine conversations. Hello, can I help you? Yes, I'm looking for the book section. These small moments built my fluency. One sentence at a time. I started to love hearing my own English voice. Over time, something beautiful happened. My inner voice, the one that used to speak in my native language, started speaking in English too. When I thought in English. When I felt, I described my feelings in English. That's when I realized I wasn't just learning the language. I was becoming part of it. Talking to myself had created a new world inside me, where English was alive, friendly, and full of confidence. I still talk to myself today. Every morning, I look in the mirror and say, "You're doing great. Keep learning. Keep speaking." It motivates me. It reminds me where I started, from silence and fear, and how far I've come. And I want you to do the same. Don't wait for the perfect partner, the perfect class, or the perfect time. Your best partner is already with you. It's you. Talk to yourself. Encourage yourself. Teach yourself. Because here's the truth. If you can talk to yourself in English, you can talk to anyone in English. The confidence you build alone will show in your real conversations. Every word you say to yourself is a brick in the wall of your fluency. So start today. Look in the mirror. Say hello. Tell yourself what you're doing, how you feel, what you dream of. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Just speak. Because when you talk to yourself in English every day, your voice grows stronger, your mind gets faster, and your fear disappears. And one day, you'll look back and realize that simple habit was the reason you finally learned to speak English. Chapter 5. From Listening to Speaking. Before I could speak in English, I had to learn one important secret. Good speakers are good listeners first. I used to think speaking was just about talking. But the truth is, it begins with listening. Every baby learns that way. They don't study grammar or memorize words. They listen. For months, they listen to voices around them, the rhythm, the sound, the emotion, and one day, they start to speak naturally. When I understood this, my English learning changed forever. I realized that if I wanted to speak well, I needed to listen more, not just with my ears, but with my heart. At first, listening was difficult. The sounds of English were so different from my language. The words blended together. I couldn't understand where one word ended and another began. It felt like a fast river of sound, and I was drowning in it. But I didn't give up. I started small. I listened to slow English. Short clips, easy songs, cartoons. I told myself I didn't need to understand every word. I just needed to hear the rhythm, the music of the language. So I listened every day, even when it was confusing. Slowly, my ears began to open. One day, I was watching an English cartoon. The character said, "Let's go, oh." And suddenly, I understood. Not because I translated it, but because I felt it. The tone, the energy, the moment, everything made sense. That was the first time I experienced real listening. It wasn't about words, it was about meaning. I realized that the more I listened, the more my brain started to recognize patterns. Sentences began to sound familiar. Common phrases like, "How are you?" or "What do you mean?" became easy to understand. My brain was learning naturally, like a child's brain does. Listening didn't just teach me understanding. It taught me how to speak. I started copying what I heard. When I watched a movie, I repeated lines out loud. When I listened to a podcast, I mimicked the speaker's voice. I noticed how they stressed certain words, how their tone changed with emotion, how they connected sounds. This practice was called shadowing, though at the time I didn't know that name. I just knew that repeating what I heard helped me sound more natural. Slowly, My English voice started to sound alive, not robotic. At first, it was embarrassing. I would pause a video, repeat a line, and sometimes laugh at myself because it sounded so strange. But each time, I got a little better. My pronunciation improved. My mouth got used to English sounds. I began to speak without translating. It was like my brain and tongue were learning to dance together. That's when I understood, listening is not passive. It's the most active way to learn. When you listen carefully, your brain is recording every sound, every tone, every emotion. And later, when you speak, it plays it all back. I made listening part of my daily life. When I walked, I listened to English music. When I cleaned my room, I played short YouTube videos in the background. When I went to bed, I listened to English bedtime stories or podcasts. Even if I didn't understand everything, my brain was working quietly. It was learning the sound of the language, the flow, the feeling. I began to dream in English words. That's when I knew something amazing was happening inside me. My ears were training my voice. Listening also taught me confidence. Before, I was afraid to speak because I didn't know how English was supposed to sound. But when I listened more, I started to trust my instincts. I knew what good English sounded like, and I could copy it. I didn't have to guess anymore. My speaking became clearer, smoother, and more confident. It was no longer about forcing words. It was about letting them flow the way I had heard them 100 times before. I remember one moment that changed everything. I was watching an interview with my favorite actor. He said something simple. "You just have to keep going." I repeated it softly. "You just have to keep going." Then louder. "You just have to keep going." The rhythm felt perfect. The words felt natural in my mouth. That one line stayed with me. Not just in English, but in life. I kept going, every single day, listening more, speaking more, believing more. Over time, I started to mix listening with speaking. I would pause a video and try to say the same sentence in my own voice. I would record myself and compare it with the original. At first, it sounded funny. But with practice, the difference started to fade. My accent softened. My tone became smoother. I could hear the progress with my own ears. Listening wasn't just improving my understanding, it was shaping my voice. The truth is, listening and speaking are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Listening fills your mind with the right sounds, and speaking gives those sounds life. It's like filling a cup before you pour it out. The more you listen, the more natural your speaking becomes. That's why you must listen daily, even if it's just 10 minutes. Every word you hear is a seed that will grow into your own English voice. So here's my advice. Listen like a child, copy like an actor, and speak like yourself. Don't wait to understand every word. Feel the rhythm, feel the meaning. Listen to how English lives in real voices, in laughter, in movies, in songs. And as you listen, start speaking along. Don't be afraid of your accent or mistakes. Every sound you copy makes you stronger. Because the day you truly start listening is the day your English starts to speak. Chapter 6. The Power of Simple Sentences. When I first started learning English, I thought I had to use big, complicated sentences to sound smart. I wanted to speak like people in movies, fast, perfect, and full of advanced words. But every time I tried, I failed. My sentences broke in the middle. My thoughts got lost. I felt embarrassed. That's when I realized something important. Simple English is not weak English. It's powerful. It's clear. It's how real people speak. And once I started using simple sentences, everything changed. I remember one day in class, the teacher asked me, "Tell me something about your family." I froze. In my mind, I was trying to make a long, perfect sentence. But the words got stuck. My classmates were watching me. I felt pressure. Then the teacher said kindly, "Just say something small." So I said, "My family is good." Everyone smiled. It was simple, but it was correct. And for the first time, I spoke without fear. That one small sentence gave me confidence to say another. I have 2 brothers. We live together. We are happy. My English was short, but it was alive. From that day, I stopped trying to impress people. I started trying to express myself. I learned that every big speaker in English once started small. Babies don't say, "I'm feeling quite overwhelmed today." They say, "I'm tired." They start simple. And that's how they grow. So I decided to speak like that too. I told myself, fluency begins with small sentences. And it's true. Every simple sentence I spoke became a building block for my confidence. I started practicing simple daily sentences. I am hungry. It is raining. I like tea. These sentences may look small, but they are gold. They connect directly to your daily life. You can use them anytime, anywhere. And when you repeat them often, they stay in your mind forever. I realized that simple English is not boring. It's the most practical and useful kind. It's the English people actually use in real conversations. Slowly, I started making combinations. I am hungry became, I am hungry now. I like tea became, I like hot tea. It is raining became, it is raining outside. My sentences grew naturally. Like a tree growing new branches. I didn't even notice it happening. The more I used simple sentences, the stronger my English roots became. My confidence grew. My speaking became smooth. And I stopped overthinking grammar. Simple sentences also helped me speak faster. When I tried to speak with big words, I hesitated. But when I used short, easy words, I spoke without stopping. My speech became natural. I didn't need to translate in my head. I just spoke. I could have real conversations with people, small, but real. And that's what fluency truly means. Being able to express yourself clearly and comfortably. Sometimes, I practiced by describing what I saw. I'd look around my room and say, "This is my bed. It is soft. That is my bag. It is blue. I am sitting on the chair." It felt simple, almost too simple. But it worked like magic. I didn't realize it then, but I was training my brain to connect English with real life. Each short sentence became a small piece of the language puzzle. And soon, I could describe anything. One of my favorite exercises was storytelling with simple sentences. I would pick a topic and speak for 1 minute. Yesterday I went to the park. It was sunny. I saw many people. Some children were playing. I ate ice cream. I was happy. That's it. Simple words, short sentences. But it told a story. That's how I learned to build fluency step by step. You don't need long, complicated grammar to tell your story. You just need truth, clarity, and courage to speak. I started listening to how native speakers talk. I noticed they don't always use big words. They say things like, "I'm tired. Let's go. That's great. I don't know." Even in movies and interviews, people use short, powerful sentences. That made me realize that simple English isn't a beginner's English. It's real English. It's how people truly communicate. Fluency is not about complexity. It's about connection. So if you ever feel shy because your English is simple, remember this: simplicity is your superpower. The simpler your words, the faster people understand you. The clearer your sentences, the more confident you sound. And when you speak clearly, people listen. Don't try to sound like a textbook. Speak like a human. Speak like yourself. Start with simple sentences today. Describe your day in easy words. I woke up. I had breakfast. I went to work. Then try to add a few more details. I woke up early. I had breakfast with my brother. I went to work by bus. Each new word adds more life to your story. That's how you build fluency, one small step at a time. So, speak your simple English proudly, because one day, you'll realize those short sentences became your fluency. Don't chase perfection, chase clarity. Don't fear simplicity, master it. And remember, big fluency always begins with small words. Your English doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be spoken. Chapter 7. Mistakes Made Me Fluent. When I started speaking English, I wanted to be perfect. Every sentence I spoke had to sound right. Every word had to be correct. If I made a mistake, I felt ashamed. I thought people would laugh at me or think I was not smart. So, I stayed quiet. But silence never made me fluent, mistakes did. I didn't know it at first, but every wrong word I spoke was secretly helping me move closer to fluency. The truth is, perfection stops progress, but mistakes create it. I remember one time in school when I tried to say, "I ate breakfast," but I said, "I eat breakfast" instead. My friend laughed softly. My face turned red. I felt terrible. I thought, maybe I should stop speaking. But later that day, my teacher told me something I'll never forget. She said, "If you never make mistakes, you'll never make progress." That one line changed everything for me. I realized that mistakes are not signs of weakness. They're signs of learning. After that, I started noticing something strange. The more mistakes I made, the more English I remembered. When I said something wrong and someone corrected me, it stayed in my mind longer. I never forgot it. Mistakes became my best teachers. They gave me lessons that grammar books never could. Every wrong word was just a step toward the right one. At first, it was hard to accept. Nobody likes being wrong. But I slowly learned to laugh at my mistakes. When I said something funny or wrong, I smiled instead of hiding. I told myself, at least I'm trying. And that small change made me brave. The fear started to fade. I stopped waiting for the perfect sentence and started focusing on the message. Even if my grammar was broken, I still spoke, and people still understood me. That's when I realized something powerful. Communication matters more than perfection. I started practicing with friends who didn't judge me. We made mistakes together and corrected each other. It felt safe. We laughed when we said something wrong, but we learned from it. We turned our mistakes into stories. Sometimes, I would even write down my mistakes in a notebook and review them later. Not to feel bad, but to remember the lesson behind each one. It became like a game. Every mistake was a new point earned in my English journey. There was a time when I tried speaking with a foreigner for the first time. I was so nervous that I mixed up all my tenses. I said things like, "I am go yesterday," and "she play today morning." But the person smiled kindly and understood what I meant. That's when I realized, people don't care if your English is perfect. They care if your message is clear. They respect your effort more than your grammar. That day, I promised myself that I would never let fear of mistakes stop me again. Every great speaker you admire has made thousands of mistakes. You just don't see them. Behind every fluent sentence, there are hours of practice, laughter, and wrong words. Mistakes are like climbing steps. Each one takes you higher. Without them, you can't reach the top. So, the next time you say something wrong, don't stop. Smile. Say it again. Correct yourself. Every correction makes your brain stronger and your tongue faster. I also learned that mistakes make your learning real. When you speak and make errors, you create emotional memory. Your brain remembers better because it connects the feeling of oops with the new knowledge. That's how we learn naturally. The more real your learning feels, the faster you grow. And that's what mistakes give you. Real experience, not just theory. Now, When I hear English learners say, "I'm afraid to make mistakes," I tell them that fear is your biggest mistake, because silence teaches you nothing. Every mistake you make in English means you are trying, and trying means you are learning. Every time you speak, you are one step closer to fluency, even if the step looks messy. I used to think fluency meant speaking perfectly. But now I know, fluency means speaking freely. It means opening your mouth even when you're not sure. It means using your words to connect, not to impress. And that freedom comes only when you stop being afraid to be wrong. So, speak. Make mistakes. Make 100 of them. Speak loudly, proudly, and with courage. Because one day, you'll realize something amazing. Your mistakes made you fluent. The wrong words you once feared will become the reason you speak clearly today. Don't wait to be perfect. Be brave instead. Because in English, perfection is the slowest teacher, but mistakes are the fastest. Chapter 8. Practice with real people. After I learned to think in English, talk to myself, and listen every day, something inside me was still missing. I could speak, but only when I was alone. My mirror knew my English. My mind knew it too. But when I saw real people, my mouth went silent again. My heart started racing, and my confidence disappeared. That's when I realized, to truly speak English, you have to practice with real people. Your mirror gives you comfort, but people give you courage. The first time I spoke to someone in English, I was terrified. It was a stranger, a tourist asking for directions. My voice shook when I said, "Go straight and turn right." It was a small sentence, but my heart was beating like a drum. I didn't even know if my grammar was right, but the person smiled and said, "Thank you." That smile was my reward. It was proof that my English worked. It didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be spoken. That moment gave me power. I started looking for small chances to speak English. In markets, online chats, classrooms, even on the bus. I would ask simple questions like, "What time is it?" or "How are you?" Every time I spoke, I felt a tiny spark of confidence. At first, I made many mistakes. Sometimes people didn't understand me. Sometimes I had to repeat myself. But I learned something beautiful. People don't laugh when you try. They respect your effort. The only person judging you is you. I joined an online English speaking group. The first meeting was scary. I could hear people from different countries speaking so fast. I almost turned off my microphone. But then I remembered my promise. Speak, even if you're not ready. So I did. My voice trembled, but I spoke anyway. "Hello everyone. My name is Adam. I'm happy to be here." That was all. And everyone clapped. That small act of courage made me feel 10 feet tall. I learned that the hardest part of speaking is not grammar. It's starting. Practicing with real people is powerful because it teaches you real English. Not the kind from books, but the kind people use every day. You learn how to respond, how to react, how to listen and reply quickly. You learn tone, rhythm, and emotion. And most importantly, you learn confidence. The more you speak, the less you fear. The less you fear, the more you grow. That's the beautiful circle of real conversation. At first, I didn't know where to find people to practice with. But soon I realized, the world is full of opportunities. I started small, by talking to my friends who also wanted to learn English. We made a rule: only English for 5 minutes every day. We made mistakes and laughed, but we improved. Later, I found English partners online, learners from other countries who wanted to exchange languages. We talked through video calls, sometimes for hours. It was strange in the beginning, but soon, it became fun. We talked about movies, food, and dreams, all in English. I wasn't just learning words anymore, I was learning people. I also began to practice in simple daily situations. When I went to a shop, I would say, "Can I have this, please?" When I met a tourist, I would say, "Welcome to my city." When I ordered food online, I read my message out loud in English before sending it. These small interactions built my real-world fluency. English became part of my daily life, not just a school subject. One day, something amazing happened. I was helping a new student who didn't understand something in class. Without thinking, I explained it in English. I didn't plan it. I didn't translate. The words just came out naturally. Afterward, I realized that my speaking had changed. I was no longer trying to speak. I was simply communicating. That's when I understood what true fluency feels like. When English stops being a performance and becomes a part of you. Practicing with real people also teaches humility. Sometimes you'll meet people who speak better than you, and that's okay. Instead of feeling small, learn from them. Listen to how they use words. Ask them to correct you. Every conversation becomes your classroom. Every person becomes your teacher. And slowly, you become their equal. The secret is consistency. Talk to someone in English every day, even for 5 minutes. It could be a classmate, a friend, a shopkeeper, or a language partner online. If no one is available, record your voice and listen to it. Then, pretend you're talking to another person and reply. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel. The goal is not to speak perfect English. The goal is to speak brave English. Real people help you discover the true purpose of language. Connection. You start to feel emotions in English. You laugh. You ask. You share. And that's what language is for. To connect hearts, not to show off grammar. So find someone today. Start small. Say hello. Ask a question. Make a friend. Speak. Even if it's scary, do it anyway. Because when you speak with real people, your English grows faster than you can imagine. The classroom teaches you rules, but people teach you courage. And courage, my friend, is what turns your English into something real. Chapter 9. My Daily English Routine. When I finally decided to take English seriously, I realized something important. It's not about how much you study in one day. It's about how often you do it. Consistency was the real secret. I used to study for hours on one day, then skip for 3 days, and wonder why nothing was improving. My English felt like it kept restarting again and again. But once I built a simple daily routine, everything began to change. My words became clearer, my confidence grew, and English became part of my life, not just a subject I studied. My daily routine didn't start big. In fact, it started very small. Just 10 minutes in the morning. That's all I could manage at first. But those 10 minutes were gold. Every morning, before doing anything else, I spoke 1 or 2 English sentences out loud. It was like greeting the day with English. I looked in the mirror and said, "Good morning. Today is a new day. I will speak English today." It sounds small, but it trained my brain to think in English first thing in the morning. That little ritual set the tone for my whole day. After that, I made a simple plan. I divided my day into small English moments. Morning for speaking, afternoon for listening, evening for writing or reviewing. I didn't pressure myself to do everything perfectly. I just made sure I did something every day. Even 5 minutes was enough. Because English doesn't grow in one big jump. It grows quietly, like a plant you water every day. In the mornings, I focused on speaking. Sometimes I talked about my plans. Today I will go to school. I will meet my friend. I will eat lunch. Other times, I practice self-talk. I feel good today. I slept well. I'm ready to learn. These sentences connected my life with my language. They made English feel like part of who I was. And because I spoke them daily, they became automatic. I didn't need to think. The words just came. In the afternoon, I trained my ears. I listened to English while walking, eating, or even doing chores. I didn't need to sit and study. I just listened to something simple. Short podcasts, children's stories, YouTube videos. I learned to let English flow through my day like background music. Even when I wasn't focusing deeply, my brain was learning. It was getting used to English rhythm and sound. Slowly, I began to understand more without effort. In the evening, I wrote. Nothing complicated, just a few sentences about my day. I woke up early today. I went for a walk. I felt happy. Writing helped me remember words and see my progress. I also read those sentences out loud to practice pronunciation. Sometimes, I recorded myself and listened again. I noticed how my voice changed day by day. More confident, more natural. It was like watching myself grow. The key to my daily routine was not time, but consistency. Even on days when I was tired or busy, I didn't skip. I told myself, just 5 minutes. And often, 5 minutes turned into 15. The trick was to start, not to wait for the perfect mood or long free time. Because English doesn't need hours, it needs daily contact. Every time you touch English, you strengthen your connection with it. I also added a fun element to my routine, something I truly enjoyed. For example, I loved music, so I added one English song a day. I listened, sang along, and learned the lyrics. That made learning emotional and joyful. I also loved movies, so once a week, I watched a short English film or episode. It didn't feel like study. It felt like fun. That's how I stayed motivated without forcing myself. Soon, my English routine became a habit, like brushing my teeth. I didn't need to remind myself. It just became part of me. Even my thoughts started to follow my schedule. In the morning, my brain wanted to speak. In the afternoon, it wanted to listen. In the evening, it wanted to write. My day became a little English journey, repeated again and again, until it became my normal life. The most beautiful thing was seeing progress in small moments. One day, I realized I could understand a whole video without subtitles. Another day, I noticed I spoke to a shopkeeper in English without hesitation. Those were small wins, but they meant the world to me. They showed me that my daily practice was working. Fluency wasn't a dream anymore. It was happening quietly, day by day. I learned that discipline beats motivation. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You just need to show up. Even when you're tired. Even when it's hard. Even when you think it's not working. Because every time you practice, you plant a seed. And one day, those seeds grow into confidence, clarity, and freedom. So here's my advice. Build your own daily English routine. Make it simple. Make it small. Make it something you can keep doing forever. Speak one sentence in the morning. Listen to one short video in the afternoon. Write 2 lines at night. Repeat this daily, and I promise, English will stop feeling like a subject. It will start feeling like your second skin. Remember, the best way to master English is not by studying more, it's by studying every day. Turn English into a habit, and fluency will follow naturally. Because what you do daily becomes who you are. And one day, you'll wake up and realize, you didn't just practice English every day. You lived it. Chapter 10. Speak like you feel. There was a time when I spoke English with no life in my voice. I focused so hard on grammar and pronunciation that I forgot what really mattered. Emotion. My sentences were correct, but they sounded empty. I said, I am happy, but my voice didn't sound happy. I said, I am sad, but it had no feeling. It was like my words were wearing a mask. One day, I realized that real English, the kind that touches people, doesn't come only from your mouth. It comes from your heart. You don't just speak English with your tongue. You speak it with your feelings. I remember watching a movie scene where a character said, "I'm proud of you." It wasn't the words that moved me. It was how he said them. His voice was full of love and strength. In that moment, I understood something powerful. Emotion gives meaning to your words. Without it, even perfect English feels lifeless. With it, even simple English feels beautiful. That's when I started practicing how to feel my sentences, not just say them. When I practiced in front of the mirror, I didn't just repeat words. I acted them. I said, "I'm happy," with a real smile. I said, "I'm tired," while stretching my arms. I said, "I'm sorry," with a soft voice and a gentle face. Suddenly, my English sounded alive. I wasn't just practicing pronunciation, I was practicing connection. I realized that when your body and your feelings join your words, you speak from the soul. And that's the kind of English people never forget. Emotion also made me remember words better. When I spoke with feeling, my brain held on to the sentence longer. I could remember how it felt to say it. Learning became deeper, not mechanical. I stopped reading sentences like a robot. Instead, I lived them. When I learned, I'm excited. I thought about moments in my life when I truly felt excited. When I said, "I'm scared," I remembered a time I was afraid. Every word became a story, not just a sound. Speaking with emotion also helped me connect with others. When I spoke with real feeling, people listened differently. They smiled, nodded, and felt what I was saying. It didn't matter that my grammar wasn't perfect. My sincerity made my English powerful. I realized, people don't remember how correct your words are. They remember how your words made them feel. That's what true communication is. Sometimes, when I practiced new words, I would close my eyes and imagine a situation. If I said, "I miss you," I imagined someone I cared about. If I said, "I'm angry," I imagined something that made me upset. Then I spoke. It felt real. My voice carried energy. That's what turned my practice from boring repetition into meaningful expression. English wasn't just a language anymore. It became a way to feel alive. I also started listening to emotional speakers, storytellers, actors, motivational videos. I paid attention to how they used their voices. Sometimes they spoke fast and loud, other times slow and quiet. They played with rhythm. They paused. They made every word matter. I tried to copy that. When I spoke, I added pauses and emotion too. "I can do this." Pause. "I will not give up." Those small pauses made my English sound confident and natural. Emotion gives rhythm to your speech. When you speak like you feel, you stop worrying about mistakes. Because your focus shifts from being right to being real. You're no longer trying to impress. You're trying to connect. And connection is what English is truly about. That's why even when your grammar is wrong, people still understand you if you speak with emotion. But if you speak perfectly without feeling, they lose interest. Emotion gives your English a heartbeat. So, the next time you practice, don't just say the words, feel them. If you're happy, let your smile live in your voice. If you're sad, let your tone be soft. If you're excited, let your energy show. Don't hide behind grammar. Let your heart speak. You'll notice that people understand you more, not because your words are perfect, but because your energy is real. Today, when I speak English, I don't worry about sounding like a native speaker. I focus on sounding like me. My voice, my feelings, my truth. Because language is not about perfection, it's about presence. And when you speak with feeling, you are fully present. People listen. People feel you. That's when English becomes powerful. So, speak like you mean it. Speak like every word matters. Don't just say, "I'm learning English." Say it with pride, with belief, with heart. I'm learning English and I love it. Let the world hear your emotions, not your fear. Because your feelings are what make your English truly alive. Chapter 11. From Shy to Confident. I used to think confidence was something you were born with. Some people spoke easily, laughed loudly, and used English like it was their natural voice. I wanted that, but I was shy. Whenever I tried to speak, my face became warm, my hands started shaking, and my voice disappeared. I knew the words, but fear controlled my mouth. I watched others speak and thought, maybe I'm just not made for this. But I was wrong. Confidence is not something you're born with, it's something you build, one small brave moment at a time. When I was younger, even saying hello in English felt like a big risk. I was scared of people's reactions. What if they didn't understand me? What if I pronounced it wrong? I kept waiting for the perfect moment to speak, a moment when I would feel ready, strong, and sure. But that moment never came. I realized I could wait my whole life and still never feel ready. So one day, I told myself, you don't need to be ready. You just need to start. That one thought changed everything. The first time I forced myself to speak in English in front of people, it was far from perfect. I said short, broken sentences. I forgot words. My accent was strong. But something surprising happened. No one laughed. In fact, people smiled and listened. That's when I understood that most people are kinder than we think. They don't care if you make mistakes. They care that you're trying. My fear began to shrink, slowly but surely. Every time I spoke, I became a little braver. Confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So I started giving myself small challenges. One day, I greeted my teacher in English. The next day, I ordered food in English. Another day, I introduced myself to a stranger online. Each small act was scary at first, but I did it anyway. And every time I did, something magical happened. The fear got smaller, and the voice got louder. Step by step, word by word, I was building my confidence. I also started talking to myself more. I practiced what I would say in real life. I imagined conversations before they happened. When I met someone, my mind was ready. I already knew what to say. That made me feel calm. Preparation gave me confidence, but practice gave me power. When you speak daily, even alone, your mouth learns what your mind already knows. Soon, speaking in front of people feels just like speaking to yourself. There was a day I will never forget. The day I spoke to my whole class in English. I had been practicing for weeks. My hands were shaking as I walked to the front. I could hear my heartbeat. But then I remembered all those nights talking to myself, all those little moments when I chose to speak instead of staying silent. I took a deep breath and said my first sentence. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. As I continued, my fear began to fade. When I finished, everyone clapped. I smiled, but more importantly, I felt something inside me awaken, pride. I realized that confidence doesn't mean you're not scared, it means you speak even when you are. After that day, English no longer felt like an enemy. It became my friend. I stopped running from it. I started playing with it, trying new words, new tones, even jokes. The more I played, the more confident I became. I understood that confidence grows from experience, not from perfection. You can't wait to feel confident before you speak. You must speak first, and confidence will follow. Sometimes, even now, I still feel shy when I meet new people or speak on camera. But I remind myself of how far I've come. The same voice that once whispered, "You can't," now says, "You can." That's the voice you must build. Your inner cheerleader, not your critic. Talk to yourself kindly. Celebrate small wins. Every hello, every short conversation, every brave moment counts. Never ignore them, because they are the roots of your confidence. And here's a truth most people don't realize. Confidence is not about speaking loudly, it's about speaking honestly. You don't need to act like someone else. Just be yourself, but in English. When you speak from your heart, your voice naturally becomes strong. People feel your truth, and that truth is more powerful than perfect grammar or fancy words. So if you're watching this and you feel shy, remember this. I was you once. I couldn't speak, I was afraid. But I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep going anyway. Speak today, even if your voice trembles. Smile even when you feel nervous, because the more you do it, the easier it becomes. One day, you'll surprise yourself. You'll speak naturally, confidently, and freely. You'll realize that the shy person who once stayed quiet is gone. In their place stands someone new, someone brave, someone strong, someone fluent. Confidence isn't found, it's created by you. So start now. Say one sentence out loud. Not tomorrow, now. That's how confidence begins. Chapter 12. Speak English, live English. There came a day when I finally understood that English was not just a language I was learning, it was a life I was living. Until then, I had separated English from my world. I studied it for an hour, and then returned to my normal life in my native language. But the moment I started living in English, not just learning it, everything changed. My progress became faster, my words felt more natural, and I stopped translating. I wasn't just speaking English anymore, I was becoming it. It started with small things. I changed the language of my phone to English. At first, it was confusing. I had to guess what each button meant. Sometimes I clicked the wrong thing, sometimes I got lost. But each mistake was a new lesson. My phone became my teacher. Every notification, every message, every small phrase trained my brain to think in English automatically. Without realizing it, I was reading English every day, not as study, but as life. Then I started labeling things around my room. On my desk, I stuck a paper that said table. On the wall, I wrote window. On my cup, I wrote mug. Every time I touched something, I said its name in English. It turned my home into a classroom. I was surrounded by words. I wasn't just memorizing vocabulary, I was living it. My environment spoke English, and slowly, so did I. I changed what I watched and listened to. Instead of movies in my language, I watched English shows with subtitles. I listened to English podcasts while walking. I played songs and sang along. At first, I didn't understand everything, but I didn't stop. Because I knew that understanding grows from exposure. English was becoming part of my daily sound world. My ears were learning while my heart enjoyed it. Learning stopped feeling like work, it became part of who I was. Living English also meant thinking in it. I started describing my day in English inside my mind. When I felt tired, I said to myself, I need rest. When I was happy, I said, today is a good day. My thoughts slowly changed language. I didn't plan it, it just happened. Because English was now everywhere around me. It was in my phone, my music, my mirror, and my thoughts. My mind began to live in two languages. But one of them, English, started to lead. I even began to dream in English. The first time it happened, I woke up amazed. It was a small dream. I was buying something at a shop and saying, "How much is this?" But it meant something big. It meant English was no longer outside of me. It had entered my subconscious mind. That's what happens when you live a language. It doesn't stay in books, it lives inside you. Of course, there were still difficult days. Some days I was tired. Some days I didn't understand new words. Some days I felt like giving up. But then I remembered, this was not just a subject I was studying, it was a part of my life now. I couldn't give up on it, just like I couldn't give up on breathing. I spoke English when I walked, when I thought, even when I whispered to myself. I didn't care how good it sounded, I just kept going. Every sentence, every thought, every sound was a small victory. One day, something beautiful happened. I was walking in the street, and someone asked me a question in English, and I answered without even thinking. It was automatic. I didn't translate, I didn't plan. I just spoke. That's when I realized that fluency is not about knowing everything. It's about being comfortable enough to speak without fear. It's about letting English become a part of your everyday rhythm. Living English also made me discover myself in new ways. I saw how my voice sounded different in this new language. Softer, calmer, more confident. It felt like I had found another version of myself. One that was brave enough to speak, to connect, to express feelings I had never said before. English became my mirror, reflecting the person I was becoming, curious, strong, and free. Now, English is not something I practice for an hour. It's something I breathe all day. It's in my music, my thoughts, my emotions, and my dreams. And that's why I never lose it. I live it. Once you make English part of your lifestyle, it never leaves you. You don't have to force it anymore, it flows naturally. So, if you truly want to speak English fluently, stop treating it like a school subject. Make it your daily companion. Change your phone, listen to it. Think in it. Speak it. Surround yourself with it until it becomes your world. Because the more you live in English, the more English will live in you. And remember, fluency isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Speak from your heart. Feel your words. Let English become your friend, not your fear. Because when you start living English every single day, something beautiful happens. You stop learning it and start being it.